Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show, it's about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Cleaning Lady. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I should also note, this story didn't turn out the way I thought it would have in certain regards, but we'll talk about that as we, break down the episode. Well, as I break down the episode. I don't know why I'm talking about me as if I'm multiple people. Regardless. The fact is that I love that it starts off with Tony and Fiona going to the doctor trying to find out who is the person that was on the donor registration who backed out. It ends up turning out it's this guy named Joe. Now, at first, I'm also, side note, I did not see his name in the opening credits because I wasn't paying as much attention. But then I saw him in that scene where you see him from a distance, is that Lou Diamond Phillips? Gets closer, it's freaking Lou Diamond Phillips, which obviously most recently was in the sadly canceled Prodigal Son, which I'm once again still bummed about that. But it's hey, back on Fox in this regard. But regardless, at first, they're talking to Joe. I was okay, so what's the reasoning behind it? I thought he was going, it was his reasoning wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but I thought it was so interesting when we first get introduced to him, and he's just kind of all right. Obviously, he comes from the perspective of, he's I don't speak Tagalog. He's, very, Americanized, because he's yeah, I might be half Filipino, but, he's more American. He's just as much as American as anyone else that was born in here. So, for him, he doesn't appreciate, he comes off as a complete and utter asshole, because he's even when he hears Tony's story, right, this is Luca, you are literally, she even says later on, out of 35 million people on the registry, you're the only person that matched with him, and so he needs you, because if she doesn't, because basically his body in the condition that it is, he needs the bone marrow so that he can recover, so that he can be in good enough position to be on that clinical trial, so he can get what he needs. So this is the linchpin that will decide Luca's fate, essentially. And so Tony's writing everything on this. She thought she could appease to Joe's humanity, but he was no. In fact, you're trying to corner me and stuff like that. He's nah, screw that. In fact, 50,000. Oh, you want to run your mouth more to me? 100,000. I'm man, you're an asshole. But I was thinking to myself, I was she could technically get the money, from, but I'm no, her and Armand are not in a good place. So it wasn't really an option, and obviously Fiona needs money right now herself, because she's got to pay for a lawyer so that someone can start doing the thing to help Chris, be with his status situation of being, hoping to remedy that situation. So she needs to pay for a lawyer. Even Tony's right, I've been saving up a whole bunch of money. You could actually use it. But she was no, everything's going to work out in the end. Sadly, they went on this trip. They're yeah, we're going to make it happen. It's going to work. It's going to turn out great. Everything's going to be fine. And sadly, it kind of blew up in their faces. But what complicates things too for Tony is not only did she deal with all this, she's not going to go to Armand for help, because he was next time you need my help, don't come to me. So now it's a situation where Garrett's yo, come in. I need you to do more for me, because I know you're not telling me everything, which Tony hasn't. Because she knows for a fact it wasn't, he's after Armand specifically, but that's just because Armand's your way into toppling the whole organization. But because he's still under the impression Armand's the one that popped Theo. It wasn't. But and Tony knows that, but she's still holding all the cards, because she never knows how this is all going to play out. She got that list of names from him last episode, but she chose not to say anything because she doesn't 100% trust Garrett. He didn't present himself in the most trustworthy way. It's not he got off on the wrong foot, first and foremost, by pretending to be someone else, then threatening to, get her, deport her and her son. So it's right, you're not instilling loyalty. How's she supposed to trust you? So she's holding back things that are basically going to be right, these are insurance plays in case the situation calls for it and she needs to put in something that can be her Hail Mary. But it's right, she's holding back. She's got ammunition against Armand and them, but she's not going to give Garrett because she doesn't trust him. How does she guarantee that he's going to keep up his end of the bargain? She doesn't know this, but we know he didn't do a great job of protecting Theo, because he got. So the same thing could end up happening to Tony. Once again, she doesn't know that side of things, but still, he wants her to yo, take this pen while Eric's talking with some people. I want you to click it and record it, yada yada, move on. She's no, I'm not going to do that. He's no. This isn't a request. once again, he's forcing her hand. Like, she hasn't done anything bad, but it's just like the fact is that he can hold her status of being illegal here over her head. Like, she will never be underneath him, and he wants to act like everything's like fine and dandy. At one point, he's like, "Oh, can I get you a coffee?" She's like, "No, I don't." Later on, she's like, "I don't want anything. Like, do I look like I want anything from you?" And he's almost like, "Oh wow, what's her deal?" It's almost like everyone else around you realizes how much of an asshole you are, but for whatever reason, Garrett can't. It's like, I can't fathom why people think I'm an asshole. I don't know why either. You just don't instill the greatest amount of confidence in people, especially with the way he presents himself. Maybe there's a deeper reason. Like, hey, at the end, because it's sad too, because last episode, he's shown that, hey, he can be a decent guy, but he can still be a tool, you know? It's easy to be a good guy when it comes to your own family. Like, it takes more to not be an asshole outside of your family. That's where you really shine, because, like, yeah, I mean, not always, but typically you're going to be nicer to the people you know and care about. It's how you respond to other people is what, really matters. That's when the empathy really kicks in. I'm not saying it doesn't matter when it comes to your own family, but the way he's talked to his ex, and, I mean, even the fact is he's like, well, my son liked the walkie-talkie more than my wife's bike, so it's like, hey, one up on me. It's like, I get it, you're going through a separation right now, but the fact is you're trying to keep score and be like, haha, I came out on top. Haha, in her face for getting the bike that I said. Like, it's petty, So that kind of just lets you know about his personality, both in and outside of his family. So it's just kind of an interesting thing to kind of keep in mind with his character as we go forward with the show, but still. So, and I think maybe this speaks volumes about maybe both Tony and Armand. One, about the fact is that regardless of everything, despite how she looks and views Armand, she knows he's a means to an end, just like Garrett is a means to an end. She's playing both sides. She has no loyalty to either one of them. Her only loyalty is to her son, and whoever gives her the best results with protecting her son, she's got to play Garrett because she needs to make sure she's giving him enough and working with him enough that he doesn't decide to deport her and her son. She's got to work with Armand, even though she doesn't agree with what he does, for the sake of getting her everything she needs for the sake of her son, but she also knows he's a means to an end because he's kind of a blunt object you can point in a certain direction, because he holds some affinity towards Tony, whether it's just he likes her as a person, he sympathizes with her circumstances because he knows what it's like to be someone that's in a weaker position. That's why he's here where he is right now. He wanted to be in a stronger position where he did never have to rely on other people. If he wants something, he can get it himself. Strength to protect what matters to him. Like, so when he looks at Tony, he sees who he was in the past, and he wants to help her out of her circumstances, because it's like, right, he feels for her. It's like, right, the system is built up against you. Like, you can't even help your own kid. Like, how messed up is that? And this guy doesn't want to help you, knowing about Luca. Like, how heartless of a piece of crap is he? So, like, there is a part of me that's like, the fact is, it's interesting that Tony feels the need to open up to him, whether that's something she's fully recognized yet, or whether it's just a thing of like, no, I'm opening up to you on purpose because I know if you are someone that you are decent enough. I've seen the humanity in you that despite the gangster side of things, there is enough of a person in there. I know that you'll listen to me. So she says later on, like, oh, I didn't expect you to straight up kidnap Joe like you did. Because even I was like, what are you going to do? Because Armand brought up a good point. You don't want to give this guy money. He's an extorter. Like, he's extorting money for your son's life. It's like, screw this guy. Because it's also the thing of, yeah, you give him money, who's to say he's not going to want more in the future, or he might change the price. So like, oh, it's $100,000. So you brought me $100,000. I'm going to go with $150,000 now, But despite everything, it seemed like Joe was more so specifically saying like, no, I was giving her amount of money that I knew she wouldn't be able to pay just so she would leave me alone. But he's also like, right, no money or anything, leave me alone. So they end up kidnapping the dude. And obviously Tony's like, I didn't mean for this to happen. And he was like, oh, like, do you see what's happening here? Like, oh, you didn't mean for this to happen. And she explains to him, it's like, right, you were that golden opportunity. You were that last little bit of hope for my son. And can you imagine, for me, my child's life being hanged in the balance, and you were that glimmer of hope, and you took that away for whatever reason. Like I said, I was like, he had to have some reason for doing what he did. So, and Armand is like, cool, we'll leave him where he is, and we'll leave him to think about his choices. But when the time comes, Tony's like, no, let him go. Which I'm like, oh, he does know what your face is, but Armand's like, no, we know where you live. You say anything to anybody, I will get you. I know where you work, I know where you live. And I'm surprised that because I guess because he does understand, like, right, despite, like, you having gangsters, like, grab me, it's like, I understand, this is about your son's life, so for him, because he talked about like his reluctancy to do it, and she's like, it's a procedure where like nothing's going to go wrong, and now we get why, like when he was tied up and being held, why that triggered him so much, because it turns out his wife went in for a simple procedure, didn't come out. It scared the crap out of him, and it made him so angry. He sued the hospital, and even his daughter was like, why would you do that? Like, suing the hospital is not going to bring mom back, because him being on the registry was actually like his daughter manipulated him to do that. Either like she put his name on the registry or something. He's basically like, I'm not going to get manipulated like I was by my daughter. But because essentially him and his daughter haven't seen eye to eye. They haven't really even talked to each other, because even when like Tony and Fiona stopped by, it was like, yeah, oh, my dad helping someone. She's like, yeah, that sounds so unlike him. Because, and I love that for him. It's just from a character standpoint, it's like he's angry and he has every right to be. Like, I'm never gonna blame someone when it's like, oh, there's like you want to sue someone because like your family, like you're hurting, you're hurting, you need something, you want somebody to pay, like, you know. And for him, it's like, I was angry at everyone. He was even asking Tony, like considering everything that's happened with your son, like how do you not hate everyone in the world? And that anger is what consumed him, and just like he needed something, you know. He knew like suing the hospital wasn't going to bring his wife back, but it's just like he needed something like to appease that anger. He needed to lash out at something or someone, and that's why he backed out, because he backed out of procedure, because he was legitimately scared, because it's like, right, it triggered like some PTSD in him. Or, you know, it triggered within him, like, you know, like, right, like, it was supposed to be something simple. And despite him and his daughter not being on the best of terms, it's like, he's still the only parent his daughter has left. He didn't really talk about that, but I'm assuming that's part of, like, right, I need to be there for my daughter. Like, what if I go in for a simple procedure and I die? And just also, like I said, it triggered a lot of memories with his wife. It's like, no, she should be here, but how can I trust a hospital to do the right thing, that everything's going to work? Even a simple procedure could still end up with me being dead, so he's not too keen on that idea. And obviously they end up having a flat tire, and well, because she had talked about the fact is that the reason why she's not angry at the world, because she's like, I don't need anything as long as my little boy, she's like, he's my hope. As long as he's by my side, that's all I need. So he's what keeps her grounded. He's what keeps her sane. He's what keeps her from just lashing out at the rest of the world. And so when the time comes, like, there's a flat tire, he's like, oh, did your dad ever teach you that? Because he's like, yeah, I think every father should teach their daughter how to change a flat tire, like, more like, you know, automobile type of stuff. And she was like, yeah, her dad died. He was a doctor, and he always believed in helping people, so that's why she ended up becoming a doctor herself, and why she went down the route she did. And it wasn't until she started singing that lullaby to Lucas so he could go to sleep, it struck a chord with Joe, because he's like, my wife used to sing that same thing to our daughter. It's like anytime she got fussy, he was like, she always preferred her mom to me, you know? And so it's like that change. It's like, right, every child should be able to have their mom in their life. And in your case, like, a mom should be able to have their child in their life. So he's like, right, let's go back to Vegas. I changed my mind. And he gave over the bone marrow. So that was sweet. Once again, not where I expected it to go. For one, I thought Armand and them were going to have to, like, hurt the dude or, like, threaten him or something. Because I thought when the way Joe eventually talked to, like, Tony, the way he was, and I thought Tony was going to be like, you know what, screw it. I thought she was legitimately just going to take it from him, but it's like, no, I want you to give it willingly. I don't, because luckily it's like, yeah, they kidnapped him, sure, which is still kind of, yeah, but like Joe handled that a lot better. Like, that's so interesting. Like, if these were different, that storyline in its own could have been a movie in its own right, and just like, just kind of having like a happily ever after, even though like there's some complicated circumstances that led to that happily ever after, but it was beautiful in the end. And I love that he sat around with Fiona and Tony and their kid and Fiona's kids and was eating with them, and but they surprised him with his daughter, and she's like, I'm so proud of you, Dad, because I think for her it's like, right, she sees the person her dad could be, like, just because like he finally was able to kind of let go of all that anger, and just kind of he was able to do something nice, something good for somebody else. And I think that, and it brought him and his daughter back together. I think this is how they begin to heal fully. You know, he's been holding on to that anger for so long, and it ended up pushing him away from his daughter, but now they found their way back to each other. Thought that was beautiful. So like I said, I didn't expect the story to play out that way, but it had a like happily ever after type of ending in some regard. So I thought that was pretty dope. That's also like, Fiona's like, yeah, how did Tony convince you? And Tony and Joe looked at each other. It's like, I couldn't let my Filipino sisters kind of like leave them in the wind like that. I love that. I thought that was a fun way of like handling that. Like, yeah, we both know the truth, but let's not go into that. Which, speaking of Fiona, how she rectified her situation is she was initially not going to sell drugs, but the guy was like, come on, like, I can't let you be a cocktail waitress because, you do what you do could put me in danger. Which obviously is like, sadly, Fiona doesn't realize she's just being used. It's like, right. He needs a buffer zone. Like, oh, I sell drugs. Like, obviously the money and stuff comes back to me, but that way I have a buffer zone in case you get arrested. For one, that's on you. You're expendable because it's like, cool, you're going to get deported anyway. So it's not like any of that could necessarily fall back on me in court and stuff like that. I guess it's a justification. So she's just a means to an end. And I don't think she quite realizes that yet, but it's going to blow up in her face. She was initially going to give the drugs back to, but it's like, right. Selling the drugs gave her the money she needs, which, both her and Tony, which is like, yeah, Tony kind of doesn't have the room to judge considering who she's mixed up with right now. But, that's going to come back to screw her over. In fact, I wonder if, because of Tony's situation, I'm curious if Garrett is going to make sure Fiona takes the fall for something, just so he can, like, screw Tony over even more. We'll get to that in a second. But luckily, she got enough to get the lawyer as a retainer to, like, put in the work for Chris, so we'll see how that all pans out. But obviously Armand is in a process working with Eric to try and buy the hotel because but obviously the person who owns the hotel has got other people trying to bid for it. So with what they got on a recording, they end up going after Eric. They're arresting him. But Eric luckily has his laptop at the hotel, so it's like, cool, you need to get that beforehand. So Armand gets Tony to go up and get it. Funny enough, one of the people coming to get it was Garrett and his partner. So Tony was like, okay, if you get caught, this is going to be a weird situation. And luckily she hid away, but she managed to sneak out of the room when they were occupied. I was like, oh, I wish she hadn't closed the door. If she hadn't closed the door, they probably wouldn't have immediately come back. But it's like she probably meant to close it a little softer than she did. But it's like I would have just cracked it open, left it cracked, and just took off. Because that way, it probably would have been at least give you a more head start. Because they'll probably be like, wait, is the door open? Did someone come in? Someone must have gone out. They only went to the door because they heard her closing the door. So you're like, damn. Sadly, Tony left her necklace, which shouldn't have been fiddled, but I guess it was a nervous reaction, and that's how Garrett knew, like, oh, you're lying and stuff like that, because she was fiddling with it, and that's kind of like, right, it's subconscious stuff that you do, like, oh, to kind of ease you, because it means a lot to her, so, like, obviously messing with it, like, it makes her, like, feel good. So she ended up leaving that behind. So Garrett knows she was in that room. He can't necessarily tie her to being the person that ran away, because Tony could justify being like, I've been all over the hotel, like, I worked there, I've never hid that, so I probably dropped it somewhere. And it's like, yeah, just happened to be that room, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh, you claim not to know the dude, too, and stuff. So that's going to come back. Especially because later on it turned out, cool, Eric's dead. He gets shanked in prison. I do not believe that was Armand. I think it was Armand's boss who called that, because it's like, right, we can't take the chance that, because Eric's a loose end, we can't even take the chance he might take a deal, because that's the thing, like, out of anyone, he's more likely to break. Granted, he saw how Armand handled things, so he probably not the people I want to screw over, but they didn't even want to give him a chance. They immediately removed him from the equation, so Garrett's not too happy about that, because Eric was supposed to be their way to kind of, like, do all this. Like, Tony was just kind of a side means, but now she's kind of everything now. Now that Eric's going, it's like, cool, I'm going to go even harder towards you, Tony, because, like, now you're kind of my in. You're my in. You're the last play I have here. But it's like, Tony's going to be like, wait, Eric is dead? Why would I help you after Eric's dead? It's like, oh, you kind of have no choice at this point. So he's definitely going to be, kicking up his assholeness for the purposes of getting her to do what he wants. So that's not going to end well for Tony. But it'd be interesting to find out whether or not it was Armand. I don't think it was, because I don't think Armand would do that. I think Armand would trust enough, like, Eric would keep his mouth shut, because he's the one that told Eric's like, yeah, just don't talk, we got this covered. But it could be Armand, but I don't see him doing that. His boss, as well as his boss's son, are more likely to call those orders than he is, but we'll see. Another angle to this was everything. I guess this also strikes away that weird thing I was thinking, like, oh, is there something weird going on with his dad that, like, those are actual recordings and not his actual dad talking? It's like, no, like, I thought they were crazy at the time, and like, yeah, that was just a crazy thing in my head. It's like, no, Tony talked to his dad, and it's like, his dad was even being like, I'm upset because I can't even be there with my own son, so basically, if it comes down to it, I need him to be home with me in case it ever comes down to that. But Tony's like, no, it won't come down to him dying or whatever. We're going to figure a way out to make it work. And so we're at least heading in the right direction. In some regards, once again, Garrett's going to come after her super hard. Because she's kind of his only means to an end, and it's like, and he's not going to jeopardize because it's too important to him. Because he seems like, once again, it seems like it goes beyond just an FBI agent trying to take down. I mean, he's probably dedicated years of his life to this, so it's probably like there's that, but it feels a lot more personal. But we'll see. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how things go forward in the next episode. Tony won't be able to keep this up forever. The lines in the sand are getting are drawn, and she's got to choose a side once and for all, because playing both sides is going to end up screwing her over big time, and it did this episode, especially because if you're going to play both sides, you're going to have to be pretty good at making sure both sides don't find out you're playing both sides. But Garrett is more inclined, and now he's more knowledgeable about you playing both sides because he knows you were in that room. So once again, she could play it off, but he's too like, no, this is too important to me. I'm not going to be sympathetic with you, which once again parallels, like, puts him on the opposite side of the spectrum of Armand, who is very sympathetic towards her and willing to do whatever for her, whereas Garrett plays hardball and he's just kind of a complete another, once again, asshole about it. So once again, we'll have to wait and see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.